A heavy, oppressive feeling hung in the air, mirrored by the gray sky above the campus. Rain began to fall, dotting my skin and clothes, quickly intensifying into a downpour. I ran for shelter, shivering as the cold seeped through my clothes. Safe inside, I let out a sigh of relief, the muffled rain a comforting backdrop. In the bathroom mirror, my tired reflection stared back, hair wet and eyes shadowed by long nights. I reached for a towel, grateful for a brief moment of warmth and quiet. After drying my hair, I tossed the damp towel onto a chair and glanced at my roommate's empty bed. The room felt especially quiet until Kyla returned, soaked from the rain, her presence warm and confident. I handed her my towel, feeling the familiar pang of insecurity. Kyla's effortless beauty always made me feel like a pale imitation, and the silent comparison weighed on me, a private battle I fought every day. "So Alex, did you hear about the new transfer student?" Kyla's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. She grinned, teasing. "He's from Russia and quite the looker." I blushed. "Yes, I met him. His name is Ivan Reese." He was tall, confident, older, everything I wasn't. Kyla nudged me. "You gonna make a move?" I just smiled, hope and nerves swirling inside me. Outside rain fell. Maybe, just maybe things could change. The rain lingered, painting the world in gray as I walked the hallway, clutching my textbooks. I saw Ivan by the lockers, deep in conversation, his confidence making my heart race. I wanted to talk to him, but my feet wouldn't move. My hands tightened on my books as Ivan's friend nudged him, pointing me out. Ivan's eyes met mine, a jolt of electricity. Embarrassed, I froze, but he started walking toward me. Ivan approached, his presence overwhelming. I blurted, "I'd like to be your girlfriend," before I could stop myself. My face burned with embarrassment as silence stretched between us. Ivan, clearly surprised, hesitated. Oh, well," he stammered, rubbing the back of his neck. I risked a glance at him, searching for any sign of hope. After a long pause, he finally said, "Sure." Relief and disbelief crashed over me. His explanation was cut short by my reaction, a mix of joy and nervous energy. Before Ivan could finish, I hugged him tightly, my books clattering to the floor. "You've made me so happy," I whispered, overwhelmed. Ivan gently pushed me back, awkward. "Sorry, I just prefer to get to know someone first." My heart dipped, but I forced a smile. "Of course," I replied, hiding my impatience. Inside, I vowed not to let this slip away. This was my chance at happiness. I would protect this fragile connection at all costs. No one would come between us. Four months passed. We looked like any college couple, holding hands, sharing hugs, kissing in private. But Ivan kept boundaries, and a darkness crept in. Nightmares haunted me, Ivan leaving, cheating, abandoning me. I woke up terrified, my love for him growing into obsession. The thought of losing him was unbearable. My anxiety bled into my days, jealousy flaring whenever he spoke to others. I pushed the thoughts aside, clinging to him as my only source of happiness. Our relationship blurred between happiness and dread. My nightmares of losing Ivan poisoned my waking life. Jealousy stabbed me whenever he laughed with someone else, especially Sullivan, his new friend. Sullivan was charming, always around, and I hated how Ivan seemed drawn to him. I should have admired Sullivan, but jealousy won out. My world revolved around Ivan, and I couldn't let it crumble. I watched them together, bitterness growing. I wanted Ivan all to myself. I tried to convince myself jealousy was normal, but it only grew. I wanted to keep Ivan away from everyone, even his best friend. Lost in these thoughts, I realized I'd dug my nails into my palm, drawing blood. Panic hit. Ivan couldn't see me like this. In the bathroom, I washed the blood away, staring at my wild reflection. "It's not me," I whispered. "It's everyone around Ivan." A dark clarity settled in. They were the threat, not me. I knew what I had to do to keep Ivan, no matter what. I returned to my dorm, heart still racing from my date with Ivan. The night was perfect. Dinner, a movie, a walk under the stars, and a kiss I'll never forget. Kyla was waiting, eager for details. I smiled, but my thoughts drifted. Ivan had finally told me about his past, why he wears those contacts. His childhood was filled with pain and fear, but he trusted me with his truth. I held his hand, promising myself I'd never let anyone hurt him again. The story was horrifying, a glimpse into a past that explained so much about his guarded nature. It also explained the red contacts. My mother had green eyes. Every time I looked in the mirror, I remembered her cruelty. His words hit me. My eyes were green too. Do my eyes remind you of her? I asked, terrified. Ivan nodded and my heart shattered. Later, Kyla suggested I leave Ivan. The thought was unthinkable. Ivan is mine, I yelled, not seeing the fear in Kyla's eyes. I stormed out, determined. No one would take him from me. I fled the campus, fear and rage twisting inside me. Every face became a rival, every glance a threat. Kyla's betrayal echoed in my mind. She wanted Ivan, wanted to destroy my happiness. Alone in my car, anger hardened into resolve. I had to protect what was mine. With chilling purpose, I started the engine. The storm within me was over, my path was clear. I parked far from my usual spot and slipped into the cool night, heart pounding. The dormitory loomed, silent under the moonlight. I crept inside, every step deliberate. The door clicked softly as I entered our room. Kyla slept, peaceful and unaware. A million voices screamed in my mind, kill her. My gaze fell on the pillow, my hand reaching out, but doubt flickered. Was this really the right choice? I trembled, torn between love, fear, and obsession. And then, I acted, crossing the point of no return. For a couple of seconds, nothing happened. Kyla slept deeply, unaware. Then her body sensed the lack of air. She woke, panicked, fighting beneath me. My grip on the pillow was unyielding. Her muffled cries faded, her hands clawing at my arms. Silence fell. I had killed my best friend. All for Ivan. Panic surged. I ran, blood on my arms, fleeing into the night. I dialed Ivan's number. The phone rang, slicing through the silence. Ivan slept on, but his roommate Sullivan groaned, forced awake by the persistent ringing. Sullivan shook Ivan, pointing at the glowing phone. "Your girl is calling!" Ivan finally answered, only to hear Alex's frantic voice. "Someone's following me! I'm hiding in the old asylum! Please help!" Ivan's heart pounded. He was hooked. My plan was working perfectly. The car ride to the asylum was tense and silent. Ivan stared out the window, worry etched on his face, while Sullivan tried to reassure him. My plan was unfolding perfectly. "There," Ivan said, pointing at the looming asylum. My car was already there, a silent testament to my lie. "We need to find Alex," Sullivan said, determination in his voice. Before they could call out, I struck from the shadows. The pipe connected with a sickening crack. I hadn't meant to hit Ivan. "Alex, what the fuck?" Sullivan screamed, terror in his voice. My scream echoed in the darkness, raw and real. Ivan lay motionless, blood pooling beneath his head. My beloved hurt by my own hand. I dropped to my knees, desperate, trembling, pleading for him to wake up. Sullivan lunged for Ivan, but I lashed out, rage overtaking grief. Blood welled on his cheek. "This is your fault," I spat, my voice trembling. The truth spilled out. It was all a lie, just to get Ivan here, away from everyone. My eyes locked on Sullivan. "You made me hurt him. It's all your fault." For a moment we were frozen in a terrifying tableau. Me with my weapon and my madness, Sullivan with his bleeding face and his dawning horror, and Ivan, unconscious on the floor between us, the catalyst for it all. Sullivan's eyes darted from my face to the pipe, then to Ivan's still form, and finally to the long dark hallway that branched off to the left wing of the asylum. His survival instinct kicked in. With a sudden burst of movement, he turned and sprinted down that hallway, his footsteps echoing loudly on the cracked tiles as he plunged into the oppressive darkness. The sound of his escape broke my trance. He was running, he was trying to get away. A predatory thrill shot through me. This was a game, a hunt. "Oh, you can't run from me," I whispered to the empty entrance hall. I started after him, my own footsteps a steady, menacing counter-rhythm to his frantic, panicked flight. I was running in near-total darkness, the only illumination coming from the weak, ghostly beams of the streetlights in the parking lot. They filtered through the dusty, broken windows, casting long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed like specters on the peeling walls. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and every creak of the old building seemed to whisper my name. I felt powerful. I felt alive. My right foot suddenly made contact with something solid and metallic in the darkness. I stumbled, my momentum carrying me forward as I tripped over a rusty, overturned wheelchair. I fell hard, a sharp, searing pain erupting in my stomach as my body impacted the debris-strewn floor. For a moment, the wind was knocked out of me, and it took everything I had not to scream out in agony. I felt a warm wetness spreading through the fabric of my shirt. Ignoring the pain, I forced myself back to my feet, my resolve unbroken. I could hear Sullivan's panicked breathing somewhere up ahead. He was close, he had found a place to hide. I spotted an old, doorless room just ahead, a black square of deeper shadow against the gloom. He must be in there. I slowed my pace, my footsteps becoming deliberately quiet. I had to steady my own breathing to silence the ragged gasps for air so he wouldn't hear my approach. I took out my phone, its dim light a small beacon in the oppressive dark. I shone it on my stomach, my breath catching in my throat at the sight. A large, jagged shard of glass from a broken window pane was embedded deep in my abdomen. "This is a pane in the glass," I whispered to myself, a pained, delirious chuckle escaping my lips. The joke was morbid, a sign of my own unraveling, but it brought me a strange comfort. Perfect. I quickly put my phone back in my pocket, plunging the hallway back into near-total darkness. The pain in my stomach was a constant, throbbing reminder of my injury, but I pushed it to the back of my mind. It was an inconvenience, nothing more. My primary focus was the hunt. I could hear his muffled movements from the room just ahead. He was trying to be quiet, but his fear was making him clumsy. A slow, cruel smile spread across my face. He was trapped, like a rat in a cage. I decided to play with my prey for a little while longer, to savor the moment of his terror. "Oh, Sully," I cooed, my voice sickly sweet as it echoed down the empty, dark hallway. I let my footsteps become audible again, a slow, deliberate shuffle that announced my presence. "Where'd you go, Sully? Don't you want to come out and play?" The silence that answered my call was thick with tension. I knew he was in there, holding his breath, praying I would just move on. But I had no intention of leaving, not without finishing what I had started. This was for Ivan. Everything was for Ivan. Sullivan was a loose end, a witness who could take my beloved away from me forever. I could not, would not, allow that to happen. I crept closer to the doorway of the room where he was hiding. I paused just outside, listening. I could hear the frantic, rabbit-like thumping of his heart. Or maybe it was my own. I slowly peeked my head around the corner, a sliver of a view into the pitch-black room. I saw nothing, but I knew he saw me. I ducked my head back into the hallway just as quickly, a low chuckle rumbling in my chest. He was using his own phone's light, a tiny pinprick in the darkness, to try and see. It was only a matter of time before I found his exact hiding spot. He was running out of time and he knew it. I needed to be prepared. He might try to fight back, to make a desperate break for it. I couldn't let him get the upper hand. I needed a weapon of my own, something to replace the pipe I had foolishly left behind in the entrance hall. Using the bleak, flickering light from my own phone, I scanned the filthy floor around me. My eyes landed on an old broom handle, snapped off from its brush head, lying amongst the dust and debris. It was perfect. I gently bent down, wincing at the sharp protest from my impaled stomach, and picked it up. Its wooden surface was smooth and solid in my grasp. I braced myself against the wall, ready for the worst. The game was about to end. My eyes fluttered open, the world coming back into focus slowly, painfully. The first thing I saw was the dark, water-stained ceiling of the asylum, its peeling paint like the skin of a leper. My head felt incredibly heavy, a dull, throbbing pain emanating from the back of my skull. I cautiously reached up and touched the source of the pain, my fingers coming away wet and sticky with my own blood. My mind was a fog, but the memories were starting to trickle back in. Alex, the pipe, Sullivan, Sully, Alex, I called out, my voice weak and raspy, barely a whisper in the cavernous space. I slowly, unsteadily pushed myself to my feet, the room spinning around me. I pulled out my phone, its bright screen a painful shock to my aching eyes. I switched on the flashlight, the powerful beam cutting a sharp swath through the oppressive darkness. Sully! Alex! I called again, my voice stronger this time, laced with a growing sense of dread. The answer I received was not the one I had hoped for. It was not a voice, but a sound. A series of sickening, wet thuds followed by a desperate cry from my friend. Alex, stop! It was Sullivan's voice, filled with pain and terror. The sound of metal repeatedly bashing against skin and muscle followed his plea, a brutal, percussive rhythm of violence that made my blood run cold. My eyes widened in horror. Without a second thought, my fingers flew across my phone's screen, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. A calm voice answered on the other end, but I barely heard it. I choked out the address of the asylum, my words tumbling over each other in a panicked rush. And then I hung up, not waiting for a response. The police were coming. I just had to hope they would get here in time. I ran, my phone's light bouncing erratically off the decaying walls, guiding my way down the dark, terrifying hallway from which the sounds of the attack were coming. I had to stop her. I had to save my friend. I rounded a corner and ran straight into a sight that I knew would be burned into my memory for the rest of my life, a waking nightmare from which I would never truly escape. Alexandria was standing over Sullivan's crumpled form. The rusty pipe from the entrance was in her hands again, dripping with fresh blood that formed a glistening crimson puddle at her feet. Another, larger puddle of blood was spreading out from beneath Sullivan's head, soaking into the grimy floor. He was so still, too still. "Hey, Alex!" I stammered, the sound of my own voice causing her to freeze. The rusty pipe fell from her grasp with a loud clang, and she slowly turned to face me. She turned to face me, and the sight of her eyes sent a fresh wave of terror through me, even more potent than the horror of seeing Sullivan's broken body. They were the same eyes, those terrifying, manic green eyes that had haunted my nightmares for years, a perfect mirror of my mother's on that fateful night. All the fear, all the trauma I had tried so hard to bury, came rushing back to the surface. I was no longer a man. I was a small, terrified boy again, hiding in a closet from the monster who was supposed to love me. "Ivan," she whispered, her voice a strange, broken caress. "My dear, sweet, beloved Ivan." She ran towards me, her arms outstretched, a grotesque parody of a lover's reunion. She crashed into me, hugging me tightly, her clothes and hands sticky with Sullivan's blood. A guttural yell of pure revulsion and terror erupted from my chest, and I shoved her off me with all my strength. She stumbled backward, a look of shocked hurt on her face. "What have you done? You killed Sullivan!" I screamed, my voice shaky and wavering, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. All she did was stare at me, her head cocked to the side as if she couldn't comprehend my anger. It was then I knew she was truly, completely gone. He was getting between us," she explained, her voice eerily calm, as if she were explaining the most logical thing in the world. "Wanting you all to himself. You're my boyfriend, and only mine." She took a hesitant step towards me, her arms reaching out again. "Get away from me!" I yelled, taking a reflexive step backward. My words, my rejection seemed to finally pierce through her delusion. The impact was visible, like a physical blow. Her face crumpled, and her manic eyes filled with tears. "What? But it's just us now, my love. Please, take me in your arms," she begged, her voice breaking into a pathetic sob. A cold, calculating thought cut through my fear. The cops were coming. They would be here any second. If I could just keep her here, if I could stall her for just long enough, they could take her away. They could arrest her, and she could get the help she so clearly and desperately needed. It was a horrible, sickening gamble. I had to pretend. I had to play along with her madness. "I'm sorry, Alexandria," I stammered, forcing the words out. "Well, let's just sit down and snuggle, okay?" The words felt like poison in my mouth, but she bought them. The relief on her face was immediate and profound. She was a child, desperate for affection, and I was her only comfort. I felt sick to my stomach, my skin crawling as she clung to me like a magnet, her body pressing against mine. I was the little boy from so long ago, trapped again, placating the monster to survive. We leaned against the cold, grimy asylum wall, her head resting on my shoulder. I whispered meaningless, soothing things into her ear, empty words designed to keep her calm, to keep her sedated. My mind was screaming, but my voice was a gentle lie. It felt like hours passed in that terrifying embrace, each second stretching into an eternity of suspense. Then, finally, I saw them. The flashing red and blue lights of the police cars, slicing through the darkness and painting strobing patterns across the broken windows of the asylum. Alexandria had fallen asleep, her breathing finally even, nuzzling against my chest in a grotesque parody of peaceful slumber. But her peace wasn't destined to last. The sound of the old metal doors being busted open by the police echoed through the cavernous building, a loud, violent crash that jolted her awake. "What was that?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with alarm. She saw the flashing lights, the beams of powerful flashlights sweeping through the darkness towards us. A look of pure, unadulterated betrayal cloaked her face as she looked from the approaching officers to me. How could you?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with despair. "I loved you! I thought you felt the same! Freeze!" One of the two officers yelled, their voices booming in the enclosed space. They had heard her yelling, and now had their tasers trained directly on her. The red laser dots danced on her chest, a stark warning. Alexandria was hyperventilating, her eyes darting frantically from the cops to my face, then back to the cops again. The reality of her situation, the trap closing in around her, finally seemed to sink in. "You won't keep me from him," she whispered, a vow made to herself more than to anyone else. "I'll never let that happen." In a sudden, desperate burst of movement, she grabbed the bloody pipe from the floor. She didn't run at the cops, she didn't run at me. She turned and ran deeper down the hall, away from all of us. With a final, guttural scream, she threw the heavy pipe at a nearby window, shattering the remaining glass. Without a moment's hesitation, she leaped through the jagged opening and into the darkness outside. Both officers fired their tasers, but their shots missed, the electrified prongs embedding themselves uselessly in the wall. I stood up, my legs shaking, and watched as Alexandria scrambled to her feet outside and disappeared into the dense, dark woods that bordered the asylum grounds. She was gone. My gaze then fell upon Sullivan's still form, and I rushed to his side. I dropped to my knees beside my friend, heart pounding. Trembling, I searched for a pulse, faint, but there. "Please, call an ambulance!" I cried to the officers. Officer Blakely called for help, while Officer Stevens comforted me. The news hit hard. Alexandria was now wanted for murder. I woke in a hospital, alone, the weight of it all crushing me. Back in my dorm, I found her letter. I threw it away, but knew my ordeal wasn't over.